Okay, so in this video I just want to quickly talk a little bit about types of data transmission. Okay, so like we spoke about in class, it might seem like data should only be sent one way or in one type of way, but there are actually several. Alright, and the ones we really want to focus on for your exam are the ones on the list here. So we need to know all about parallel transmission, serial transmission, full duplex, half duplex, and simplex. Okay, so let's have a look at serial communication first, or serial transmission. Okay, so in serial transmission we have one wire where the data is sent down and one bit of data travels down at a time. Okay, so this means that the first bit that is sent should be the first bit that is received, right? Which is a big advantage of serial transmission, because it means that the data will arrive in the order that it's sent. Right? So you don't need to spend any time, or very little time, putting it back together in the right order. Okay, which can be a big benefit. Okay, it's typically used for longer distances. When I say longer, I mean anything more than 5 meters. All right, anything more than 5 meters. Okay, the internet is a really good example of serial transmission. Okay, because it's using the cables that you see going from your computer into the wall, or from your router in your house into the wall. They are serial cables. Okay, they're sending information one bit at a time. However, they can send them very, very fast. That is why we have such good internet speeds. Okay, because there's only one wire used, it means that it's cheaper. Okay, and because there's only one wire used, it also means that there are less errors. And so you can see some good advantages there. A disadvantage is that it is slower, because there's only one wire. Okay, so let's have a look at parallel now in comparison. Okay, so you can see straight away that in this diagram here we actually have 8 wires going down here. All right, we have 8. Okay, your exam might show you 4, but it will be more than 1. Okay, if there's more than 1 wire, that means it's parallel transmission. Okay, now the biggest advantage that you can probably see with this one is that because there's 8 wires, it means you can send 8 bits at a time. All right, so that means that it's fast. All right, a lot faster because there's 8 wires. Okay, it's typically used for shorter distances. Right, that's anything less than 5 meters. Right, now the reason why we say less than 5 meters is because if you use the longer you get in parallel connections, the more likelihood is that when the data arrives, it will arrive with some of it out of sync, like that. Okay, now if it's out of sync like that, that's what we call a skew. Alright, now all a skew means is that it's out of sync, it's not aligned anymore, and that means that there will be a data error. Okay, so a disadvantage of this one is that you get more errors. Okay, now because there's more wires, it also means that it costs more. Alright, so you're only ever really going to see this type of connection, a parallel connection, if you are using connections inside of a computer or right next to a computer. Alright, when I say right next to, I mean within 5 meters or less. Any more than that, it's not a good idea to use, because you're going to massively increase your chances of getting those errors. Okay, so let's move on to now simplex connections. Right, now a really good example of a simplex connection might be, well, basically anything that broadcasts. All right, so you could say your TV, or you could say a radio, or anything that just goes one way. Alright, so when you hear a speaker, you can't give information back to that. You might shout at your TV if your favourite sports team's losing, but they're not going to hear you. Alright, it only goes one way. One way only. Okay, now with half duplex, okay, it means that we can go two ways, but only one at a time. Alright, so again, Wi-Fi and the internet is a good example of this, okay, because when you think about it, you might connect to the internet and then you might send a request to Google, say. Right, they receive that request and they send it back to you, but it's never really going down the same path in both directions. Your computer and Google servers aren't talking to each other at the same time. Yeah, you send a request, and then Google gets that request and they send it back. Alright, so the internet will be a good example of that. Another very good example of that would be like a handheld radio. Okay, you press your button, you talk, you let go of the button, and then the person you're talking to presses their button and then talks. Alright, so a handheld radio will be another good example. Alright, now for full duplex, alright, this is where you can go two ways at the same time. Okay, so a phone would be a good example of that. Alright, so when you're on the telephone, you can talk to each other at the same time. Okay, so let's just have a quick recap of what we talked about. Right, so different types of data transmissions you need to talk about: parallel, serial, full duplex, half duplex, and simplex. Serial sends one bit at a time. Parallel, several bits at a time, often 8. Okay, simplex only goes one way, like a radio or a TV. Half duplex can go both ways, but only one at a time, like a handheld radio or you connecting to an internet server. And full duplex can go both ways, both at the same time. All right, like a telephone. All right. Okay, now just before I leave you on this video, right, if we just go back to the parallel connection, right, because I did notice on a worksheet, and this might have something to do with something I've said in class that confused you. All right, but when we are looking at parallel connection, all right, parallel connection doesn't have to be full duplex. Okay, so if you look at a parallel connection, a really good example of a parallel connection would be a printer. Alright, a printer next to your computer might use a parallel connection. Alright, but that doesn't mean that it goes both ways at the same time. It might go both ways because you might send a message to print, and then the printer sends one back to say out of paper. Ow. That might happen, okay? But what it's not doing is it's not happening at the same time. Okay, when you are sending, if you have a serial connection to a device on your computer, it's often just a device sending signals to your computer, and your computer doesn't even send that device a signal back. All right, so parallel does not have to be full duplex. All right, it can be full duplex if it needs to be, but it doesn't have to be. All right, so it's not always full duplex. Okay. Right, I think we'll just leave that one there. And if you have any questions, you can ask me.